Have you ever noticed how some people seem to understand money very early in life, while others spend years working hard and still feel like they're constantly running in circles? This happens more often than people realize. And when you start observing the lives of people who built a fortune while still young, one thing becomes very clear. They didn't start rich. They didn't have a magic formula. They simply began to see money in a completely different way from what most people are taught. And there's an interesting detail here that almost nobody talks about. Many of these millionaires who built wealth early say that the hardest moment wasn't when they were broke. It was when they started to save a little money. It sounds strange, but when you have zero, you simply live. You pay what you can, deal with whatever shows up, and move on with life. But when you start to build a small reserve, something changes inside your mind. Suddenly a new fear appears. The fear of losing what took you so long to achieve. That's when the silent anxiety begins. The kind many people feel but can't explain. You look at the money you've saved and at the same time feel both security and fear. Security, because there is finally some breathing room. Fear, because now there's something to lose. And it's exactly at this moment that many people begin to make bad decisions with money. Some spend everything because they can't handle the pressure of protecting what they earned. Others become so paralyzed that they don't use the money even to improve their own lives. The millionaires who built fortunes early learned something very important about this. They understood that money isn't only for paying bills or accumulating numbers. Money mainly serves to create mental clarity. When you have a minimum level of security, your brain leaves survival mode and enters decision mode. And that changes absolutely everything. People who constantly worry about whether the money will run out cannot think about the future. The brain stays trapped, solving urgent problems. A bill that's due, an unexpected expense that appeared, a payment that arrived before the paycheck. It's like trying to drive while looking only 1 meter ahead of the car. You only react. You never plan. Now notice what many young millionaires started doing when they realized this. Instead of trying to get rich quickly, they started by trying to reduce the financial chaos in their own lives. That was the first big lesson. The first lesson that repeatedly appears in the stories of people who built wealth early is simple, but almost nobody truly takes it seriously. Earning more money helps, but organizing what comes in and what goes out changes everything. It sounds too basic to be true, but the impact is enormous. Many people spend their lives trying to increase income without ever looking at their own financial behavior. Self-made millionaires learned early to observe their own habits. They noticed small things that silently drained money. It wasn't just big purchases. Many times it was small decisions repeated every day. Subscriptions nobody uses. Impulse purchases made to relieve a bad day. Expenses that happen simply because nobody's paying attention. This awareness creates something powerful. Emotional control over money. A second lesson that appears often is something many people ignore because it seems too slow. They started early, not because they knew exactly what they were doing, but because they understood that time is the greatest ally for anyone who wants to build wealth. When you start early, even with little money, you allow time to work in your favor. There's no magic here. There is consistency. Small amounts saved repeatedly create a cumulative effect that seems invisible at the beginning, but becomes enormous after a few years. But there's a psychological detail that makes many people give up before seeing results. At first, saving money feels useless. The amount grows too slowly. It feels like effort without reward. And it's exactly at this point that most people abandon the process. Young self-made millionaires learned to ignore that initial feeling. They understood that they were building something that was not yet visible. They treated the money they saved as a tool for the future, not as something that needed to bring immediate satisfaction. The third lesson might be the hardest to accept. Many of these millionaires didn't try to look rich while they were building wealth. This sounds simple, but it goes completely against the social pressure that exists today. Social media shows cars, trips, expensive clothes, and luxurious lifestyles, as if that were a sign of immediate success. But those who built fortunes early usually spent years living much more simply than they could have. Not because they liked deprivation, but because they understood something fundamental. Every dollar spent today is a dollar that stops working for you tomorrow. This doesn't mean living miserably. It means spending consciously. It means choosing where money truly brings value to your life and where it only feeds an image. Another powerful lesson that appears in the lives of many young millionaires is focusing on increasing skills before increasing consumption. They invested in learning new things, improving their work, and developing the ability to solve problems. That naturally increased their income over time. Most people do the opposite. When income increases a little, their lifestyle immediately rises. A new phone, a more expensive car, more fixed expenses, and when that happens, the person remains stuck at the same financial level, even while earning more. People who build wealth early try to avoid this trap. When income grows, a larger portion goes to investments or reserves. Their lifestyle rises slowly, very slowly. Another interesting thing is how these people deal with financial mistakes, because they make mistakes too. Everyone makes mistakes with money. The difference is that they treat mistakes as fast learning opportunities. They analyze what happened and adjust their behavior. Many people, when they make a financial mistake, react emotionally. They ignore the problem, go into denial, or try to compensate by making even worse decisions. That creates a cycle of financial frustration. Millionaires who built fortunes early tend to treat money much more pragmatically. Something went wrong. Adjust, learn, move forward. There is also a quiet lesson that appears in many stories of early financial success. They learned to separate personal value from financial value. Money did not define who they were. It may sound philosophical, but in practice, it is extremely useful. When self-worth depends on money, every financial decision becomes an emotional test. Spending becomes a way to prove value. Investing becomes a fear of losing status. This creates a very confusing relationship with money. When money becomes just a tool, decisions become much clearer. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is understanding that true wealth doesn't begin in the bank. It begins in the way you think about money every day, in the small decisions no one sees, in the repeated choices that seem insignificant in the short term. Most fortunes built early did not come from a single big stroke of luck. They came from thousands of small decisions made consistently over many years. Saving a little when nobody was watching, avoiding unnecessary debt, investing in skills, not trying to prove anything to anyone, and most importantly, learning how to deal with the anxiety that money can create. Because in the end, money isn't just math. It involves fear, expectations, comparison, and identity. And those who learn to deal with this emotional side begin making much smarter decisions. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized that building wealth isn't about miracle formulas. It's about changing the way you see money in your own life. And now I want to know something. If this content made you look at money in a different way, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because here we talk about money in a way that almost nobody does. And comment below with a simple word that shows you made it all the way to the end. Comment the word mindset. That way I'll know you really followed this conversation all the way through.